Hello, everybody. Welcome along. It is another edition of the Cricket Badger podcast, and I have great pleasure in welcoming to the podcast Jake Lintott. Jake, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Not too bad. Enjoying some time off at the moment. So yeah, just haven't got a lot on. So it's quite nice to be able to talk to you this morning.
And it's been a bonkers year for you, hasn't it? You've come from, there's a kind of narrative, and I was watching you playing on Sky once, and the kind of commentators were talking about you. It's almost the narrative that people have liked to have done is that you've just been picked out of a classroom and taken into cricket, and it's just happened overnight. But that's far from the truth, is it really?
Yeah, no, it's obviously that's the picture that's been painted a little bit, I guess. But it's been years of sort of grafting and trying to create opportunities for myself, really, and develop my own game by myself. So yeah, it sort of feels like reward for a lot of hard work that I've put in over countless trials and years and with different clubs. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of the year I've had, but it's sort of, for me, it's an exciting time now to just build on that and try and keep moving forward.
I've opened this up for some questions from the Cricket Badger followers, and I'll bring those in as we go through. I tend to, on these one-on-one interviews, do a 20 questions, but because you've only just really arrived on the scene, I've kind of adapted those a little bit for your interview and used some of the listeners' podcast. But Ted's asked, did you ever feel like giving up on the dream? I mean, you were 27 when you signed your first pro deal with Warwickshire. Were there ever any days where you thought, well, that's gone past me now, this isn't going to happen?
Well, I'd say there are a number of times where that thought sort of comes in, and it's normally just after sort of rejection, I guess. And I had quite a lot of that. At sort of 19, I was told by Somerset I wasn't good enough, and that was fine. But it still hurts. I was fully aware that I wasn't good enough at that point, but it's still, it's not nice having sort of grown up through the age groups and onto the academy, and then to be told, you're not going to play for Somerset is tough. So that was the first one. And then I played for Hampshire and did well with their second team. And again, just wasn't in a position to take up a full-time role there due to the amount of spinners they had. So that hurt. And then Gloucestershire was probably the hardest I got hit, I would say, after having done really well in 2000 and I think it was 18. I sort of did really well within the first team and then in Red Bull Cricket in the second team. And yeah, basically didn't get anything off the back of that, which was probably the hardest the hardest time I got hit, really. And that took me sort of 3 or 4 months to really process that and go again, really. And that sort of performances for Gloucester led to the trial at Warwickshire and haven't really looked back since then. It took me quite a while to break in at Warwickshire, sort of 18 months, but got there in the end. And yeah, I guess coming back to your question, I've always had that desire to play professional cricket. I love playing cricket. It's what I've always wanted to do. So ultimately you're going to have setbacks, but it's sort of how you come back from those. And I was pretty determined to come back for them. And I knew that I was good enough. I backed my ability and that sort of shone through, I guess, and creating opportunities for myself.
So as a teenager growing up and everything, cricket was always the dream, was it? Was that always what you wanted to do?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's always been my dream. And then I got into my coaching around the age of sort of 21, 22, whether that be privately or for a number of different companies. And then I took up the role at Queen's as a sports graduate, just coaching all sport really, and ended up progressing into the role of head of cricket, and coaching still very much a passion of mine and something I'm going to continue to do. But obviously I'll be trying to fully invest in my cricket for the time being and do some coaching alongside it.
And that's Queen's College in Taunton, isn't it? Where you were a student as well, weren't you?
Yeah, I was a student there. I had some time away from the school, and then sort of once I actually joined the school when I felt like my cricket was sort of coming to an end a little bit, and it was time to focus on like a different career path. But then luckily sort of that job allowed me a platform to work at my game, but also go away, and they gave me lots of flexibility to trial still. So yeah, without them, I wouldn't probably be here now, really. So they've been a huge part of my sort of future in terms of both at school, but also from a career perspective. They helped me massively with my coaching, and also they gave me a lot of flexibility to allow me to sort of miss 3-4 days of school go and play, which doesn't happen very often, to be honest.
So you weren't just bunking off, you weren't just playing truant?
No, not at all. No, they were really supportive. They wanted me to be playing, and they realised the benefit it has on the school having someone playing professional cricket. But at the time I wasn't, so I was only trialling, so it was a bit of a risk for them, but they were really supportive, which is great.
I was obviously, knowing you were coming on the podcast, I was looking around on Twitter and on Google and saw a little video you'd done to your students when lockdown started and they were all at home, and you were obviously coaching cricket virtually, basically, weren't you? You were doing some warm-up drills and some coaching exercises that they could look at home. So, and that's not that far. That's not that long ago, is it?
No, I mean, that's sort of, I reckon, 15, 16 months ago now. So it's not that long ago, really. It's quite crazy to think that I was furloughed and just sort of stuck doing nothing, really. Lockdown was quite a productive time for me, to be honest. I
was going to ask that because I mean, obviously the pandemic is horrible. So not to minimise that, but there are some people who have benefited from the kind of time off and the ability to refocus, and you seem to be one of those kind of guys.
Yeah, 100%. I think I struggled with there's no question, working 6 days a week, sort of 10, 12-hour days in the private sector of education can be really tough, and it's long hours, but obviously there are certain privileges that come with that. We get longer holidays and we get great facilities and those sorts of things, but that was really hard, and I found that hard to juggle sort of work-life balance. Didn't really find much time for myself. I was working within a boarding house as well, which can swallow you up a little bit. So found that really hard. And when I got furloughed, I just had this massive opportunity to invest in myself, really. And I've always been aware that like fitness has been something that I can improve. And I got massively into my running. I lost sort of 18 to 20 kilos in weight. And that sort of, I think, played quite a key part in me securing that first T20 deal with Warwickshire, because I was in such a good state coming out of lockdown in July, ahead of the tournament in August. I was in a good place, and I think that stood me in real good stead. The
other thing I noticed was that you had hair then. And obviously, during your period as a pro cricketer in the last year, you've not had hair. Do you reckon that's made a difference, the fact that you're more streamlined?
No, but it was, again, lockdown. I haven't got much left anyway, so it had to go at some point. But in lockdown, obviously all the hairdressers were shut, so my stepmom just whipped it off, and I was like, that's not too bad, so I stuck with it, and it's much easier now, less complicated. So no complaints from me about the lack of hair.
Question from Craig on Twitter. It's been a mad year with so much happening to you so quickly. Did you get starstruck meeting any of the superstars you've played with? And of all the players you've played with, who's been the hardest to get out?
I wouldn't say starstruck, no. I think having sort of, I'm 27 now. I think had I been an 18-year-old, that'd be quite different. You sort of idolise those guys, but I think coming in at 28, I understand the benefits of playing with these guys, and I try and tap into them as much as possible, both from like a social situations, getting involved with them, but also just from a cricket perspective, tapping into their knowledge and trying to learn from them that way. What's been so nice is how I haven't really come across anyone who has been difficult or hasn't wanted to help. So that's a really nice feeling to have, and I guess I'm privileged to be a part of, or have been a part of, some really good squads in the last year. So all the Warwickshire lads have been really supportive, and then equally at the Southern Brave, they were just an incredible group of lads, and that sort of, I think, was a key part to our success. And then my favourite probably wicket, I guess, was when I got, but sounds bad, but when I got Moeen both times, really. The first one when I got him first ball, and that was a special feeling because I knew he was a pretty key player. And then in the final, felt like that wicket was the only wicket we needed, really. And once we got that, we were going to win the game. So those two moments, I guess, bowling at those guys. But it's just incredible for me to be in this position where even like talking about getting players like that out and bowling at players like that, it's I've always believed I'm good enough to do it, but actually, like, when you look at it, it's just immense pride to be in that position now.
I know I always quite like the guys that come into cricket late and have experienced the real world. to some extent, because a lot of, I mean, I've worked in cricket. I worked at Yorkshire, and players come through the academy, come on to as junior pros. They're looked after very well, and that's all they know. So they come from school into cricket, and they never kind of touch the real world outside of cricket. Whereas you've done that, haven't you? So you kind of had a taste of reality, really.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that I've noticed just from what I haven't trained full time ever. So I've just started my first full time contract now. So I've been dipping in and out of training, sort of training once a week, twice a week, which again is credit to Warwickshire. They've been really flexible with that and supportive to allow me to do both jobs. But the guys, they won't mind me saying this, but they don't quite realise how privileged they are. Really, they're in a position where they've had that their whole life, and I've come in and I've been working, long days and lots of emails and all that side of things. And yeah, it's a pretty good way of life, really. Train sort of 3-4 hours a day. You're doing something that you always dreamed of doing as a kid, and you're providing entertainment for thousands of people, which is pretty cool. So it's a great way of life, and I'm pretty grounded when it comes to it, and grateful for the position I'm in, I guess, because like you say, I've got that experience of working a full-time gig, and that certainly is much harder work in terms of workloads and stress and that sort of thing.
And I guess, I mean, hopefully it's not for a while yet, but I guess when it comes to the end of your pro cricket career, you have a little bit more perspective when it comes to retirement as well, because a lot of the cricketers find it a lot of sportsmen in general find it very difficult to retire from the game because it's the fear of the unknown, whereas it, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think it's important. We're really lucky that we're supported by the PCA, and the PCA do an amazing job supporting all players up and down the country, really, and preparing for life after cricket, because it could happen at any point, really. Like, not being like, I've got 2 years left on my contract. If I was to have a horrible 2 years, then you just never know. That's how the game works. So it's just preparing for that afterwards. And yeah, I'll be still dipping my toes into coaching and trying to keep that sort of side of me going, because I'm really passionate about it. But also I'm fully understanding of the fact that these careers don't last forever, and I've probably at the max got 10 years. So it's about preparing for that afterwards.
I take it from what you've just said that the gig at Queen's College Taunton, is that now behind you? Or you have to give that up now?
Yeah, so it was it's just time for me, I feel, to fully invest in my cricket and see where I can really take it. The exciting thing is I've got to here now with training once or twice a week. So everything I've done has been off my own back or fitting around a full-time job. So it's quite nice now. We've had 4 to 6 weeks off now. And I can go to the gym twice a day. I can do that type of thing just to keep things ticking. Whereas before, it was always like, if I had to train, it would be sort of 6 a.m. before I start work or in the evening. So it's nice to have that time to invest in my game, and I'm excited to see where I can take it, really. It's it's a great time.
And does that mean you're moving to Birmingham? You have to move house?
Yeah, so I've got a place. I live in Wellington in Somerset, and I'm looking to rent up in Birmingham until I've got enough money to buy somewhere. So yeah, just sort of saving up at the moment and just going to rent for now, and looking forward to getting up to Birmingham and spending a bit more time with the lads, because I've not actually spent huge amounts of time with them because I've obviously been down here toing and froing, so it's been hard to fully invest in Warwickshire. And that would be really exciting for me to just sort of be around the lads a bit more and get stuck into Birmingham life.
I've spent a bit of time with Graham Welch in the past, and Pop's a great guy. And I understand from reading up about how you came into Warwickshire, and he worked with you a lot during lockdown. He kind of did the virtual kind of coaching with you in the same way you were doing it with your own students, and it seems to have been quite pivotal in your move into the pro world.
Yeah, I think ever since I started training at Warwickshire, he's probably been the one guy who has backed me to the hilt. Really, he's been adamant that I should have been signed straight away, and he was very sort of supportive of me both on and off the field. And Yeah, so he's been a huge part of my journey, really, and then obviously we work closely. We probably touch base, weekly about things and just keeping things going. But he's very good at making you believe that you're good enough, and he's very supportive. And without him, probably wouldn't be where I am now. So really grateful for that, and I had a great time with him down in the 100. Obviously, he's working with Southern Brave as well. So I've spent a lot of time with Pop, and really appreciative for what he's done. He's done a fantastic job, and he's been really good for me. Yeah.
I guess, I mean, that what you just said there about making you believe, that's one of the big skills of a coach, isn't it? That doesn't come naturally to everybody. And, from your teaching perspective, you can probably see that you've got to take what you've got in front of you and make them think they're even better.
Yeah, for sure. His style of coaching, he's not too technical. We dip in and out of technical side because there's always things you can look to work on. But his ethos is very much about, making people express themselves and believe that they can dominate games and win games of cricket. So he's definitely made me believe that, and it's proved pretty right so far. So yeah, he's been awesome for me, and yeah, that does transfer into coaching. I think coaches generally get very wrapped up in technical side of the game, but in reality, I find cricket is like 90% where your head's at and how you feel about that side of things. And if you can develop good relationships with your coach, and they can make you feel good about yourself, and they can, you sort of trust that process then, and I think that helps you perform. I'm not a huge believer in getting obsessed with technical side of things, because I'm 28. Like, ultimately, I'm here because I've got the ability. It's just then how we then transfer that into top level sport, which has gone all right so far.
Next question is from Ambition Sport, which sounds like a business, but it's a good question, so we'll give them a plug. What's been Jake's biggest pinch me, I must be dreaming moment? What a year he's had. It's clear he loves the game as much as any of us, and then a round of applause for you as well. But what's been your biggest pinch me moment in the last 12 months?
I think there's two definitely. When I signed my 3-year contract with Warwickshire, that was like literally waited my whole life for that moment. So to sort of get that security and be in a position where I've wanted to be ever since I started was special. And you sort of get
is that the only pen you ever use now, the one you signed that contract?
Yeah. You just you get that phone call, and everything's sort of finalized in terms of the contract, and it just hits you there, and it's like, oh, that's amazing. Like, that's what I've always wanted. And that was a special. I remember the drive up to Birmingham. It was quite, it sounds stupid, but the drive up to sign it is pretty exciting. So that was special for me. And then I think to sort of round off like the whole year, it was just walking out to field at Lords in that final. I remember standing at third man and just before the countdown to the start of the innings and sort of looking around thinking, this is mad. Like, Lords is sold out, playing in a final. We've just posted like a massive score. Knew we were a huge chance, but yeah, to sort of play in front of 24,000 people, but also, that tournament was played globally, and the amount of support I've had, like from friends in Australia where I played there, or, friends all around the world, really. So it was, that was a real pinch myself moment as well. Both those moments are pretty special and ranked pretty high up there.
And the kids that you used to coach at school and the ones that you taught, I imagine as a school kid, you kind of watch your teacher go off and become a professional sportsman. That's quite a big deal, isn't it? They must be quite excited. Yeah,
they go one or two ways, really. You get some kids who get shy and they'd rather dish out some banter to you and sort of like give it to you because you're on the telly, or you like make a mistake and that's the first thing they highlight. You get those type of kids, which is fine. Like, I don't mind kids dishing it out. That's all good. And then you get the other type, who are just, engrossed in it and really just sort of blown away by it and sort of try and tap into it. So yeah, it's been nice. I've popped into school a couple of times and seen them, and everyone's been, great, really pleased to see me. And I think it's good for the kids at Queen's because it sort of gives them an understanding that the school, there's often, I think in private schools, we have this perception that you need to be at the best schools, or you need to be at these top end cricket schools or wherever to make it as a professional cricketer. And the reality is you don't. The reality is you need good people around you. You're at a private school. You're already in a privileged position, and you've got massive opportunities to get better. So I think it was it hits home for a lot of those kids that actually, well, if Mr. Lintott's playing professional cricket, then why can't I achieve that? So I think that's quite a good thing for them to sort of learn from, and I guess it gives them that clear pathway that they can do that and achieve the same things.
In 10 years' time, whenever it is, when you finally put down the cricket ball, would it be going back into education? Is that how you see yourself, or do you see yourself doing something completely different?
Don't know, really. Things change quite quickly, don't they? As we well know, the last year's been pretty crazy. So I'm a very open guy. I like to keep developing and explore other things. But I am, I'm extremely passionate about my coaching. I'd like to go into professional coaching at some point. I've only by the end of my career, I've only spent sort of 10, 11 years in the professional game, and feel like I've got a pretty good amount to give back as well. So yeah, I want to continue my coaching, but who knows? You just don't know what might come up. But that's something that I'm really passionate about and want to keep going with.
You were a wild card pick for the 100s, coached by Mahela Joe Warner. I spent a little bit of time with Mahela, 2 or 3 days in the UAE a few years ago, and he's about as level-headed and as passionate about cricket as you could possibly get, isn't he? I mean, he's some guy to have in your corner.
Yeah, for sure. He was very supportive of me. The thing is, I'm very new to it, so he had to help me with quite a lot of things in terms of game management and just being a bit smarter, because obviously the 100 is the highest level of T20 cricket, really, that white ball cricket in England in terms of the quality of players you're playing against. So I did find that level up like a bit of a challenge in terms of you just can't miss, and you've got to be real smart and have real clear plans. So he's very methodical, and he's very thorough in his planning, and that was really clear from me. Like on a match day, we'd sort of have bowlers meeting, individual meetings, team meetings. It would be quite intense, which some people find tough, but for someone like me, I think it's it's massive, and it really helped me. So he was really good in that regard, but also he just brings a calmness. He's someone who's achieved some serious accolades within the game. He's probably one of the best players to ever play it. So he brings a calmness because everyone believes in what he's saying. And I remember 2 games into the tournament, we'd lost 2, and we were sat in the dressing room, and he just said, like, guys, you'll win this, like, look around, etc. And everyone's sort of trying to believe it because it's none from 2, but he genuinely believed in us, and that's something that will stand with me for a while. He was brilliant to work with.
I can remember when I met him, it was in a hotel lobby, and so sort of softly spoken and quiet and stuff. You wouldn't imagine there were thousands and thousands and thousands of international runs behind this guy. He's just really nice bloke. There's a question here which kind of maybe just illustrates my thoughts on the 100, Jake. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite here and just kind of sit here and say I think the 100's amazing. It basically says I hope you're going to ask Jake about what your opinions on the 100 are. So just to explain that, when the 100 came into being or started being muted, I set up a group called Oppose the 100 because of the potential damage it might do to county cricket, the 18 counties. And if the emphasis goes on the franchise stuff, it, by virtue of that, for me, maybe takes the spotlight off the 18 counties. And I've never, ever been against a player playing in it, because you look after yourselves as players and you try and make the money. And the standard of the cricket, actually, I thought was quite decent in the 100. So there's no qualms on that. I'm concerned about the effect on the wider game. Can you recognise that?
Yeah, I can see where people are coming from with that. The one thing I would say is there's been no drop off in terms of desire and quality of the T20 Blast. So that competition is still going to be as strong. And you'll actually find, I think, that it will be even stronger, because what's going to happen is overseas players are going to end up playing T20 cricket and then play the 100. So they'll come in one block and they'll play 2 competitions. And what you might find there is that the best player, I think, to be honest with you, overseas signings within county cricket and T20 cricket, I don't think are that strong. You don't see the best in the world coming. And I think you're going to start seeing that now. So I actually think that T20 Blast comp is going to strengthen in terms of, that block is going to be real good for overseas players. That's the biggest issue it's been before, is the disjointedness of the schedule. And like this ludicrous thing of having finals in September, like, it just makes no sense at all. So I think that's a really good move. I also think that if this structure was in place 6 years ago, I'd have played county cricket from the age of 22.
Okay.
Because I would have played 50 over cricket. That's a fact. So it's a really good way in for players on the outside. And I fully understand the argument around the 50 over competition being lesser of a format. And I think that will change. I think they are looking at trying to bring that into a separate block away from everything else. But there will be a trade-off for that. There's probably going to be less championship cricket. There's probably going to be a smaller T20 Blast, etc. But I think they are trying to do everything they can to make it as good a format as possible for everyone. But what county supporters have to understand is how much money that 100 competition is going to bring to English cricket. I can see it in sort of 2-3 years' time being, as big as the IPL. I genuinely believe it. The buzz around it was massive, and I think it will bring huge amounts of money into county cricket, which I think is a good thing. But it's then just that balance between making sure that the county game is still getting looked after as much, and they are getting the rewards for they're still developing these players and producing these players to play in this 100 competition. So it's really important they do get rewarded, which I'm sure they will. But I understand the concerns around it, and there are a number of issues with it at the moment. It's still not perfect.
Yeah, I just want red ball county cricket to be preserved as well, because you can't watch England lose a Test match and complain about the standard of an England cricket team without actually going back to the county championship. And you need a strong county championship to support a strong England. I've got no issue with the white ball. I'm a massive IPL fan, and that's going to be my next question to you, because obviously you as a at the moment predominantly white ball player, Barbados Royals came calling and you went to the CPL, and I imagine that was a terrific experience. But have you got plans to maybe enter the mega auction for the IPL and to try and spread your wings a bit further afield around the rest of the globe?
Yeah, I think again it's just, I've got to try and focus on me and keep performing. And although people might not think it, I am extremely passionate about red ball cricket as well. And that's something that I want to play. But the reality is, in England, it's very hard as a wrist spinner to play red ball cricket. It's the structure, like you say, the format is played in April, September. And the reality is that it is hard for me to do that. But I'm really keen to work at my batting and try and get myself in the team as sort of a number 8 who can bowl and add in that sense, because I feel like, with Danny Briggs at the club and how well he's done, he's an exceptional bowler. And the reality is you're not going to play 2 frontline spinners in championship cricket just because of the way it is. And that's something that's obviously people will say, oh, but he doesn't seem that interested in red ball cricket, but that's not the case. It's just more the reality of opportunities. But I'm desperate to try and create some for myself. And then from a franchise perspective, I've just got to keep performing, and I'm sure I'll be going into that. And you just never know that if I get picked up or not, but I'll definitely be trying to go in for it. It would obviously be a dream come true to play in the IPL, and it sort of still feels quite a long way off that, but you just never know. And yeah, I'm going to be, trying my best to create those opportunities for myself.
Mark Lawson, former leg spinner himself at Yorkshire, Kent and Derbyshire, I think it was, for Laws, he was basically just asked the question you've just answered there about, are you looking to strengthen your white ball skills or develop into 4-day stuff? Just to kind of go back a step from that, How do you, as a youngster, become a left arm leggy? What is it? I mean, is it Shane Warne or somebody like that that inspires you? But as a left armer, he obviously is the mirror image. So where do you get to the stage where you pick up a ball, it's in your left hand, and you decide to roll your wrist over the top?
So it came from I had a coach when I was younger called Paul Lawrence, and he worked within the Somerset pathway, and I worked with him on a one-to-one basis from probably the age of 9 all the way to about 16, once a week, pretty much, like all the way through. So I was really lucky. Like, but my parents and Paul were really supportive of me in that time. And I started off as a left arm seamer, but I just kept losing my wrist on the ball. So I kept coming like that. I was bowling like leg cutters. So I couldn't get enough pace on the ball, couldn't keep my wrist behind it. So essentially we were just like, why don't we try it? And I bowled one ball and it sort of pitched foot outside off and ragged past leg. And that was sort of, never really looked back from there. It's also like, I'd encourage a lot more left arm finger spinners at a young age, or I'd encourage a lot more coaches to start challenging kids who bowl left arm spin, because I think it's an easy option. I think it's you're going to see wrist spin become more and more into the game, and I think if kids and coaches at a young age can be more aware of that and understand that, you know, the chances of making it as a professional as a left arm finger spinner is you know, it's tough. It's a tough crowd. There's a lot of people that do it. Whereas if you're that bit different, which is definitely, you know, it stands in me in good stead. I mean, I think if I was even a right arm leg spinner, I probably wouldn't get talked about anywhere near as much as I do at the moment. So being that bit different, and it's you know, there's nothing better than making a batsman look stupid and spinning it the other way. So yeah, I think it's extremely fun. And yeah, like I said, I'd encourage a lot of kids to try it, because if you bowl off spin or you bowl left arm finger spin, I think there's no harm in trying bowling leg spin, because it is going to be a huge part of the game. We've already seen with Adil Rashid the other day, and you know, I think the argument could be that England should probably have 2 wrist spins in their team, but you know, it's an exciting time for English cricket, really, from a wrist spin perspective, and that's come from Morgan. Really, every white ball game, you know, he throws the ball to Rashid, and he works his magic, and you can see the value of a leg spinner in his side.
I know Rash a bit, and I think Rash responds to a captain that actually shows his belief in him. Like you were saying about Pop, it's about dealing with a player and making him feel important, isn't it? And making him feel good.
Yeah, 100%. Like you can see that with Morgs. He's very, you know, he's very open about how important Rashid is, and even if he goes at 8, 9 and over, he knows that he's going to pick up wickets because he's a wrist spinner. So I think that's also an understanding captains need to understand. I've been really lucky. Played under, you know, Rhodes. He's been brilliant for me at Warwickshire. He's very supportive. You know, he'll give me the ball at key times, and that's sort of a nice feeling considering I've not played a huge amount. And then Vincey is the same at the Southern Brave. So yeah, it's been nice. I think captaincy is quite hard over a spin. It's very easy to sort of take them off because they might leak a few runs, but yeah, they're going to get wickets, aren't they? So stick with them.
I mean, it's happened so quickly for you. I mean, it sounds flippant to say that because it hasn't happened quickly. It's happened over a long period, but the last 12 months has happened very quickly for you in the step up. Do you still have dreams of playing for England, going all the way and going up another level?
Yeah, well, I remember we had a meeting in pre-season, and this was when we first sort of met Mark Robinson, and Robbo's very good at bringing a group together. He's been brilliant at that, and everyone sort of understanding their roles and being, you know, like I said, back in their ability, because he gives you that belief. And he said, I remember him saying openly in a discussion, like, if you're playing for this club, like, you've got to want to play for England. You've got to, you know, you've got to want to take your game to the next level. You've got to want to achieve those things. Otherwise, there's no point being here. So, and that sort of hit home. Then I was like, yeah, why not? Like, you just, even if I don't, I might as well try. So yeah, it's obviously an ambition of mine. Still quite a way off yet, I think, but I feel like if I can keep continuing the way I'm going, then I feel like I can offer something at that level and perform at that level. So yeah, I have that belief, of course.
I've read somewhere that you've worked quite closely with the coaches to try and work out your angles, your trajectory, if it's easy to say, the speed you bowl at, and made it a bit of a classroom exercise, I guess, to go back to your former career in really thinking about how you're going to tackle batsmen and how you're going to make them look stupid, like you just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm pretty big on my analysis of opposition. I'll spend probably an hour, a couple of hours before each game on my own without coaches, just sort of having a look at footage and coming out with a bit of a plan myself. And then once I've got my plan, I'll run through it with Pop or run through it with the analyst, etc., just to see what they think, speak to the captain, see if they've got anything they want to throw in there. And yeah, I think ultimately we're really lucky these days. We've got amazing access to so much footage, which even the county game probably didn't have 3 or 4 years ago. The amount of footage that's there now is so evident. So I'm really big on, where the batters hit their boundaries, where the batters look to rotate strike, how do they get out, and if I've got that pretty clear in my mind, I know which balls I can then look to bowl more often at them. So yeah, just like an example, like you look at Livingston's boundaries, they go through mid wicket. So my plan was always to him try and go wide googlies. Obviously he got me a couple of times, but as long as you've got a nice clear plan, I think you've done all you can. It's then about just trying to execute it, and that's where your skill level comes in. But yeah, I'm a big believer in analysis. Some players don't touch it, which is fine as well. That's their own thing. But I feel like there's definitely a sort of 5-10% to be gained there by just being a bit smart with that.
Well prepared. It's all about being well prepared, isn't it? I'm going to finish off with some quicker questions to you. Some of the 20 questions. But what's the significance of number 23 on your back? Is there any? Because you seem to like that number.
Yeah, I growing up, Trescothick wore it for England, and he was obviously a Somerset legend. And then you've got, I remember David Beckham when he moved to Madrid was a bit of an idol of mine. So he wore 23, and then Shane Warne wore 23 as well. Michael Jordan. So it's been quite a big number for me growing up. A lot of those guys have been idols for me. So yeah, I've always wanted to wear 23. Unfortunately, the first season I played for Warwickshire, they allocated me 25 without me even knowing, and 23 was available. So I was a bit gutted about that. But yeah, it's all sorted now.
So you got a big black marker and just changed it on the back.
Yeah, I'm back to 24.
You had some success, didn't you, against Somerset down at Taunton? Did they let you back in?
Yeah, no, they've been. Yeah, I think ultimately, like that. I know Jason Kerr quite well, at Somerset head coach, and he's obviously just pleased for me that things have worked out. He was my academy director at the time, and he was the guy who said that I wasn't good enough. So, and like I said, there's no qualms there. I wasn't. So there's no hard feeling at all, and it's nice to be able to go back there and put in performances like I did. And yeah, but they've been happy for me because I'm a Somerset lad ultimately, and they like seeing Somerset lads do well. They've got a pretty good record in producing players, so they're just pleased for me, I think.
I'm going to let you jump in the skin of another current cricketer. You can live in their body, have their skills, and be them for 24 hours. Who would you pick?
Oh my word! Well, I'd definitely pick a batter because I love batting. I think I would probably go with AB de Villiers. I think.
Good choice.
I think if I could bat like him, I just love the way he goes about the game as well. So yeah, him.
If I was AB de Villiers, I'd just sit at home and watch YouTube videos of myself all day long because he's just incredible. I'm going to put you in charge of world cricket for the day. What one thing would you change? What's your first job at the ICC?
That's a great question. I don't like the World Cup format. I think I would like to see the associate teams get more of a crack. I think they've tried to introduce them this time, but it felt like a little bit of a bit of a gimmick, really. So I'd try and get more associate teams playing in the World Cup, and I think you might have one-sided games, but what that does for those countries is huge. So yeah, I'd probably look to change that a little bit more.
If you could meet anybody, living or dead, have an hour in the pub with them, who would it be?
Warney, I think.
Yeah.
I've never had a beer with Warney.
You'd need more than an hour, I think, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it's on the list. Hopefully, I manage to bump into him at some point. But yeah, I'd love to spend some time with him.
They are going to make Lintott the movie. Who plays you?
Who plays me? Well, Ed Pollock often calls me Jason Statham, so we'll go with that one.
What's the last time you can remember feeling really nervous? Have you been nervous going into the professional kind of? Have you been kind of quaking in your boots as you've gone on the pitch? Or
yeah, no, it's a big part of the game. I'm trying to cope with pressure, and nerves are natural. So I've done quite a lot of work with sports psychs and just trying to tap into that side of things. It's natural to feel nervous, so it's just trying to deal with that better. And I feel like I'm getting better at it the more and more I play. I'm still pretty inexperienced, really. So yeah, I feel like I'm working at that.
I just think nerves show you care, don't they? As long as you can manage them properly, it shows you care about it.
I think everyone gets nervous. I think some people can admit it, some people don't. I think everyone has nerves, but I think it's how you deal with those. It's key, and that in the past maybe I haven't dealt with them sometimes as well as I could have, and yeah, it's just learning from those, really.
This doesn't have to be a cricket answer, by the way. What is the top item on your bucket list?
Bucket list. Well, in terms of, I love my traveling, so I haven't done a huge amount of traveling. So I'd love to go. I haven't been to South Africa, I haven't been to New Zealand, and they're two places that I'd love to go to. Obviously, strong cricket background, but just more so just because I've heard amazing things about the country. So I like my traveling. I'd like to get away, and now I've got a bit more time on my hands. That's a possibility as well. So yeah, it's good.
I've not been to New Zealand, but Cape Town and South Africa is well worth the visit. Yeah. You're probably too young to remember the Fonz in Happy Days, but he was a very, very cool individual with a leather jacket. On a scale of 1 to 10, how cool are you? 10 being the Fonz, 1 being not very cool at all.
I'm not very cool. Working at my gears at the moment. So now I'm probably a 3 or 4, I'd say, on the cool scale, but who cares?
You're speaking to a 1 on the cool scale, so that's fine. I'm going to give you a time machine. It's just arrived outside. You can take it forwards or backwards in time. Where would you take it?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm not someone who likes to sort of live with regrets, but I'd love to wind it back sort of 5-6 years, and hopefully have another lockdown and get as fit as possible, because I feel like I was probably that's probably all I was missing really at that point. So yeah, maybe do that. But then equally, I'm just as excited to wind forward and see where I'm at in sort of 5-6 years time as well.
If you could live anywhere in the world, you can have a second home. Where would you plonk it? Manly
in Sydney. Literally the best place on earth. Yeah, love it. Beaches, good coffee. Yeah, amazing place. So yeah, Manly in Sydney.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would you change?
One thing about myself. Well, I'd probably love to have a full head of hair. I reckon that'd be good.
I tell you, it's the hair that's the reason for your success. So don't knock it. Don't knock it. What are you going to be doing in 10 years' time?
Hopefully, still playing cricket. If not, coaching cricket.
There is a question that's on this list that I generally ask people about. If you were starting your career again today as a youngster, is there anything you'd do differently? I mean, that's a strange question to ask you as a latecomer to the sport, but I don't think it is actually, because if you go back sort of 6 or 7 years, like you say, in that time machine, what would you do differently to try and make advances earlier?
Well, I wouldn't do any. So I've said in a lot of interviews, literally everyone I do, there's a massive problem with the structure in terms of like we make decisions on players at 18 years old, which for me is just absolute crazy. Me as an example, I was never good enough, 19, 20, 21, never good enough. But if I had been in a professional environment for those 3 years and counties could afford to invest in that player for 3 years, even if they're not good enough, then I would have been good enough at 21 rather than 24, if you get what I'm saying. So I think I wouldn't have done anything differently, but I think the system needs to adapt, and hopefully with more money coming in, this is going to be something that, squads might get up to 25, 26, 27, and we can invest in younger players a little bit more, which I think would be great. And then I'd probably just make one change really, in that I'd try and find a bit more time for myself to invest in myself, whether that be, fitness side of things or healthier living, and I think that would have stood me in put me in a better place.
Was that? I mean, you say you lost weight and you got fit and you made those changes. Do you think that was one thing that Pop and people at Warwickshire saw, that this lad means business here? Do you think that was part of the process?
Oh, I think it's huge. Yeah, I remember turning up and the lads didn't really recognise me. So, I think that's always been. I've always been someone who's moved well or fielded quite well for a biggish lad, and the only thing I think that stopped me for a couple of years prior to me signing for Warwickshire was the perception. I think people's perception was that I was lazy, but which is not the case at all. I was just working, flat out, and didn't have much time to invest in myself. And then as soon as I got that time, you can see the difference, and that's what's really exciting for me now is I've got a full winter. Hopefully some opportunities come up, but if not, I've got a full winter of just, working as hard as I possibly can to get better on all fronts of my game. So,
final question, Jake, and thank you very much for being on the podcast today. It's been a pleasure to meet you and have a chat with you today. If you'd been me today and you'd been asking you the questions, is there one question you'd have asked yourself that I've not?
No, you've been top drawer.
That's a cop-out answer. That's a cop-out. That's will get you absolutely nowhere on this final question.
I don't know what you'd want to know. No, I think we've covered pretty much all bases, I reckon. So no, it's been awesome to come on and chat to you, and obviously really appreciate how supportive you've been. And it's good to talk. And I've answered a fair few questions, so you've got a fair bit out of me.
Well, the flattery actually has got you everywhere. It's got you to the end of the interview. It has been a pleasure meeting you today. Wish you every success as you go into 2022 and beyond. And congratulations on what's been a terrific 12 months for you. Thank you for coming on the Cricket Badger podcast today. Cheers.
Thanks very much.
And obviously, plenty more guests coming up on the Cricket Badger podcast. So stay tuned. Subscribe on YouTube, at Cricket_Badger on Twitter. I've been James the Cricket Badger, and I'll see you again very soon indeed.